And we're live for the product update session. We've got Jared and we're in the building, and got some exciting things to share today. So I'm psyched that we're here. So where should we begin, guys? What is the key product update that we really want people to know about?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is transfers. So
come on,
we work with a number of clients. Those clients should have control over their own code. So obviously, if you can insert it into Webflow, that's always good because they then have control over it. But the problem I've had over and over again is like you make updates in Webflow, it's working, send it over to the client, something's off, so you got to start working on it again in Webflow, and that publishing process just really destroys your workflow. So then you start adding Slater to it, or one of those other tools that exist, and then getting back to like putting it into Webflow is just like, it's a huge headache that is a big piece of why Slater exists in the world. So with transfers, you can now have all of your projects, and you can just send that project over to the client, still have access to it, but also allow the client to control who can write JavaScript for them. So for that client. So
yeah, and as we've been working through this, it makes me think of when we were working with the Tari Labs crew on Yat, and we were doing everything through Netlify then, but it was like we'd get it set, we'd push it up, they'd have access to do it. We were using Git a little bit, but it was this weird handoff. And then once they handed it off and had it on their server, I couldn't edit anything. So I had to grab the file, edit it, email it back to them. It was a pain. So just, yeah.
Of course, if you have more than 1,000 characters, then you have to have your JavaScript hosted somewhere else. And I'd imagine most Webflow developers, if they are working with JavaScript outside of Webflow, then the client likely doesn't have access to be able to make updates to that JavaScript. So that's been the case in our history. So
awesome. So it's a lot like the Webflow, transferring a project, and then the cost of hosting that code to the client, so that people who are actually using Slater to develop or to do custom code for Webflow websites for clients can transfer that, but then still access that code and edit it for them.
Yeah. Do you want to share my screen?
Yes, I do. Jeff's in the building. What up, Jeffrey? If that's the full name, probably not. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
It probably is.
Jeff, tell us what your full name is. Sorry. Okay. Whoever's speaking, Jared, go for it.
Sure. So it's pretty simple to transfer a project. If you control the project, then you'll have this drop down. You can click this, give it a new name, and send it off to wherever it needs to go. At this point, it's kind of out of your hands. You don't have to do anything more. You can either continue to stay in your own projects or switch over to that team. Again, you have access. So if the client just does nothing with it, it's in their hands. They can choose to do something with it or not, but you still have the ability to come in here and make updates to that code. If the client does take over, then they have the ability to remove you if they want to. But that's the only way that you lose control of your project, of that project. So you'll notice the client is now the admin of this project. They can invite new people into it. They can go in and start writing their own JavaScript, but it just gives them full control.
And is there any limit to the amount of people that can be invited at this stage?
So this is a beta account, so there's no limits on this, but once we roll out a beta, the invite team member functionality goes away. So if you are a paying user, then you can invite as many people as you like.
Awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good for like big teams.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something to be said for, we've noticed that there are more and more agencies that are using Slater. So I think this is particularly powerful for, agencies that might have multiple different projects, might need to transfer multiple different things, but still have particular team members with access to that custom code. So yeah, really, really cool there.
Cool. Yeah, I think the other piece of transfers are we will incentivize you to transfer. It helps us grow our user base. Jack, do you have any thoughts around how we're going to incentivize people to make these transfers?
I thought you'd never ask. Yes, I do. So we are doing a like Slater advocate program, which we've talked a lot about. Jeff, who's in the chat, I actually spoke to him at Chicago Webflow Conf about this. And essentially, we've got all sorts of different incentives for people to have like months of free access to Slater if they create content and are essentially like Slater advocates out there in the world. But then obviously if you're transferring multiple projects to clients, we also want to reward you, because ultimately Slater's business model is more focused on getting people really interested in actually using Slater for their custom code projects with Webflow. But then hopefully once they use Slater and really enjoy actually using the platform, then they'll be transferring the cost of hosting that custom code to various different clients, and then we can all go and buy Ferraris. So that is the gist. Anything else to add there, guys, in terms of the advocates?
We'll have more details on this. Mason's writing up a blog post about it, so be prepared for more information.
Yeah. And also, guys, well, Jeff in the chat, if there's things that we can do to help you guys, or there's things we're going to have quite a simple kind of program to start with in terms of how we can reward you. But we've also bandied around the idea. Bandied around? Where did that word come from? I don't know. We've also talked about having a kind of Slater Pro program for anyone that's using Slater a lot and is clearly someone that has technical knowledge, and then we can potentially give work to those people, or have some kind of directory where we really highlight the pros in the community, and we're thinking about this type of stuff in order to create more community advocacy and also help you guys develop and grow as much as we want Slater to develop and grow. So it's kind of symbiotic thing. If there's feedback that you guys have about that type of thing, we'd love to hear it. So please do send a DM on Twitter or in the Slater Slack as well.
Cool. Anything else you guys want to say about transfers?
I'm just buzzed. I think it's it's so big. It's really, like, I've had a lot of feedback from people saying, like, how does this work with clients? Can they access the code? That this idea of access is such an important part of, doing the custom code. And then what? And I think this is the then what piece that is finally answered, which is really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I can think of at least 3 clients that I've had in the last year that would benefit from doing this, and at the time when we were working with them would have benefited from doing it too, so their internal teams could tweak some of the stuff that we made. But yeah, super exciting.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions in the chat, by the way, feel free to get in there. Ferrari sticker, yes, maybe a Ferrari sticker rather than an actual Ferrari. If you've just joined the chat and you have no idea what we're talking about, you'll have to watch back because that was a random bit. And yeah, Jeff says he's really excited about transfers. Transfers sounds awesome. Great to hear.
Cool. Do you want to share my screen again, Jack?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. I'm not very on the ball when you click
screen sharing. But
okay.
So the next piece is user feedback. We care about what you guys are saying. I track pretty much everything that's coming in, and then we work against that. And once it's completed and respond, then we kind of move on. But a handful of things that come up because of this. So if you come in here, in the past, we said it was public, and it was public to Slater users, but we've now made it public to anyone who wants to come in here. And so if you're collaborating with someone who's not a Slater user, you can still send out this URL and they'll get that, they'll get access to it, and they'll be able to sign up if they need to. But that was an improvement from Jeff. Jeff and then someone else also brought it up at the same time. It's weird how things come in drops where it's not just a single piece of feedback a lot of times. Let's see. Someone else, let's see, who was that someone else? Mike asked for the ability to make sure that we were busting cache. So there has been an update to the script. Let's go back to that. So when you copy this, let's just put it here. And you'll notice there is, so let's go to Webflow. Sorry.
Do you have like I was just noticing today that the workspaces that I've joined, I have a slew, and I think this is a thing that comes up on Twitter a lot of just my workspaces that I've been invited to. So it's like I have like 4 my workspaces that different clients just haven't named, you know, whatever their name is.
Yeah. Matt Evans is very vocal about this. He's like,
yeah, that's who it was. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think
it
was Matt, and it's it's kind of like the USB thing, you know, the joke about you never are gonna get it right the first time. It's always either gonna be upset with the old USB, not C.
Okay, so this is commented out, but this is a viewable way to see it. Here, you'll notice there is now let b equals whatever. So if you want to make sure that the user is getting the latest version of your Slater code, you can update this b to be whatever it is. So the workflow would be you update your JavaScript, save it to staging. When it's ready to go to production, you save it to production. You can then come in here and say, okay, I need to make sure that this is actually getting to the client. So I update the version. When this loads, it's going to load the production script with that cache busting parameter on it. And so you can just bump this, save it, publish, and then you're ensuring that your user is getting the latest.
So, Jared, just so like a little tiny brained person like me can understand this. So what you're saying is that if you change this is all being done in Slater. Like you don't need to actually come into the footer of the project and get the latest version.
This piece actually needs to be done in Webflow. So
okay.
If this is my JavaScript, if you add a parameter on it, like a v, then whatever it is, that will ensure that the browser is getting a new copy of this file as opposed to the same copy.
And you literally just put v equals 1.1.
Well, we do that here. So you're just making this, you're updating this variable right here in order to make sure that that v has whatever version number you're working on.
Could that be any value? I'm just curious about how it works. Like it could be like,
yeah, I think it can be
toast.
any value.
Yeah. Okay, cool. As long as it's different, it'll know, hey, grab this because it's different than it was us. Gotcha. Yeah, cool. That's awesome.
This is very common cache busting methodology or practice. So yeah, it just ensures that the browser's going to get a new copy as opposed to loading whatever copy is currently in the client's browser.
Okay, and is that for so every time there are product updates, essentially we'd want to ask people to.
So I honestly have not had an issue with this. So you save to production. In theory, that user could have a cached version of that file, and that can cause functionality issues. But if you make sure that you're just getting the latest copy, then you don't have that issue. So again, this was a request from a user, and so I had not actually been using this personally. But if you do hear that your user's having an issue and it's a caching issue, then this is the fix for that.
And this would also be resolved by just like if I'm testing and I run into a caching issue, like if I were to, a hard refresh would on the testing side accomplish similar, maybe?
Yeah, so I only append the version number to the production file.
Gotcha.
If you are developing locally or on the webflow.io account, you likely have your console open, and mine is set to not cache when this is open. I think it is a setting, but I think it's the default setting. So yeah, if you have your console open, like most likely you're not going to be grabbing a cache file. You're going to be grabbing, or it's going to be doing a full refresh each time. Yeah, you can also do a hard reload over here that makes sure you're getting the latest.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, okay, yeah, that's tricky. I haven't run into it myself either, and I generally when I work weird. I push to production like all the time. I know that's not necessarily the correct way to use it, but I also always do hard refresh. Like it's just programmed into my head to do Shift Command R and just always get the new things. But that is awesome. That's really good to know. Like just in case that comes up, that there's a way that's pretty simple to get that new update through.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. So just to clarify in the chat there, so Jeff says this is optional, right? If I don't use it, things will still work. It's only what Jared's done is basically make a way for you to ensure that you have the most recent version, but that's only if you have problems with whatever version you're currently using. And it's not like every single user has been messaging about this. So for example, I've been seeing the product updates fine, but yeah.
Yeah, it's possible that it's happening, that you push something and a user who is like on your website at that moment is getting that old file. Yeah, so it's an option there if you are running into issues, but I haven't personally seen any issues with cache files. I just know it can happen.
Okay, awesome.
So next is improve error handling. So I actually hear about this one a handful of times, and what happens, especially with a single script, is if you are saving it, but there's bad JavaScript somewhere in there and it can't minify it, then it will throw an error. So saving just with to development pretty much never throws an error. But because we're minifying the file when it goes to production, there can be an error. So if I just have an open tick here and I try to save it, it works. When I try to save it to production, you'll notice the JavaScript has an error and cannot be minified. So that should let you know, okay, there is a problem, and it's not like a network error, because before it looked like there was just some network error that it was trying to save a file and Slater was not able to save it. But it's really that minification process. If you're having an issue, it's almost always the case that you have like some typo somewhere within your JavaScript. So if I get rid of this, you'll notice also it's saving to production. And it's letting you know about that. Shoot. What's going on now? It's okay. Do I have some other bad JavaScript in this file? Yeah, so something else is wrong with my file. This is just some random stuff. So anyway, this is where I should go through and figure out this file. The reason I have like it's kind of screwed up, I'm guessing this URI is causing the problem right here. What I did here is I'm showing that this line right here, people have questions why it exists. And the reason it exists is it's just for readability. So you'll notice this URI right here is the exact same as this one, but this one's a little bit longer. And because it's going over this line, when it's getting auto-formatted, it is trying to condense the width of that code. And does that make sense, like why this exists? So you don't want, like, for readability, you don't want your code just going forever to the right.
Sure.
So this line is kind of saying, okay, this is 80 characters. Start like pressing enter and formatting your code differently.
I think one thing we could look at, because we've gotten a ton of awesome UI feedback, UX feedback over the last couple of weeks, is to look at attaching that to a toggle, just so people have the option of hiding it and showing it.
Yeah, that's something that Whit and I are going to be focusing on, is providing a lot of configuration around your files. We've heard some people saying the font's too small. In the past, it would, so if there were like a really long string, let's do this real quick. You'll notice right now it is breaking the line. In the past, it would just keep going to the right further and further. But we can allow you to say, okay, introduce line breaks or don't. I don't know how much we'll do around the what's this, the theme. Like we do like the theme, but maybe in the future, kind of like you can with VS Code or whatever your local coding environment is, like there's a ton of configuration. We'll start supporting more and more of that. And this is like, if I look at this code has all sorts of problems. That's why it's not being able to minify it. Like I don't even know where I got this code. I'm sure I copied it and pasted it.
I feel like that about some of the code I write sometimes. I'm like, where?
Like this is a prompt that is never defined as a variable. It's duplicated here. So anyway, there's reasons why this is not able to get minified. But if I were to do something simple, then when it's saving to production, it lets you know that it's working on it, and then it's successful when it.
Jared, Jeff has a question about beautification on save, which I said you could probably explain better than I can, because the difference between beautification and minification, I abstractly kind of understand.
Yeah. So what happens when you save it? We take your code, we run it through Beautify. JS. So this is a library. I think there's another one called Prettier. I don't remember exactly why I chose Beautify, but
it's a good name.
Yeah. And so when we talk about configuration, this may be something that we work on in the future as well, is like you can define how you want your code to be auto formatted. This is great for when you're on a team. A lot of people are writing their code in their own way, but with Beautify or Prettier or one of these similar libraries, it will handle rewriting your code to be readable for the next developer. When I built this, I turned it on by default. And so every time you save, we take your code, beautifies it, and then we add it back in. And there was a question from someone, I don't think it was Jeff, but like you can collapse your code here, but as soon as you save it, it uncollapses it. And the reason is because it gets beautified and then reinserted on the page. And that reinsertion is what screws up the collapsing that you may have set up. So we have a configuration that will allow you to turn it on or off. And so in theory, if you're writing your code, your ugly code, it's not going to beautify it. We'll probably come up with another shortcut to allow you to beautify it if you have it turned off. Beautify is super nice. It's great for readability, of course. It's good for teams. Where it kind of causes issues is this collapsing thing. The biggest thing that I dislike about it is like when you do Command Z to undo stuff, it can have a hard time handling that, because if the Beautify is run and made updates, then you have to Command Z out of those updates that Beautify created. So that's my biggest complaint with the auto formatting.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that too, that having to do multi-step back to do, to undo like a paste or whatever from the chatbot.
Cool. So there's a bunch of other kind of error handling that we do that wasn't done in the past. Nothing too major. You probably shouldn't have run into any issues. But yeah, we are kind of improving, making small tweaks as we find them. There have been a handful of updates in the Slater app, Webflow app. I will admit it is kind of the ugly stepchild right now. It's not getting the same love as Slater.app. I personally don't particularly like using it. So if I'm writing JavaScript, like I want a separate window anyway. It looks like I don't have control over this.
One of the things that we could look at, just because I tend to use the web app externally also, but there may be some way to kind of have an intermediary between the two that lives within the App Store. It's just a lot of times you're writing code, if you're trying to get chat stuff back, you're working in such a small window that it's there's benefits to having more space to work with.
So we did have a user who said he wanted to use Slater just to write custom CSS. And the custom CSS is a little bit weird because we're using the same kind of methodology that we use on JavaScript. And so when you're writing your CSS in the designer app, it's not getting applied to the designer right now. So it's, less than ideal on that front.
It's still an external file, basically.
And it gets loaded with the same script.
Yeah.
So if you're hoping to see that CSS in the designer, it's not going to be there. We'll probably work on an update soon to allow that to be injected into the page. And so you could write here and get that. What he wanted to use the AI to, what was it exactly? It's a good reason to use AI.
Is it media?
I think it was like a special layout. Like you can write these really cool layouts with custom CSS and using the pseudo class is the wrong term, but like the nth class and different thing like that. So AI is really good at kind of handling that kind of stuff. So you could be prompting this, saving it to your CSS, and that's that workflow is less than ideal if you're in the designer app. But again, like I personally love to just be able to pop this open, have Slater off to the side, and be able to just save and refresh, save and refresh. That's the workflow that I'm very used to as a developer. And so, yeah, we'll make CSS a first-class citizen in the future. It's certainly not there yet.
I'm excited for that because it really, I mean, like I was doing some stuff for a client yesterday with CSS in Slater, and it is, I don't know, man. I like when I'm using it for particular, like very specific problems that you're trying to solve, it's like magic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's some other like issues that we're looking to solve in the designer. Specifically, like it's good if you have the right project open, and like we're basing it off of this. But if you've already created a project, I think there's probably some issues around opening it up here. So there is some work we need to do around that. So, but again, like the Webflow app is here, it's available. Sometimes it's useful, but my recommendation is just to go to Slater app in another browser and work with it there.
We'll definitely be giving that some more love though in the future.
Okay, so I think the last kind of big thing I'd bring up is this new single script. So this is a version of the old single script. And what's going on here is we're concatenating all of your JavaScript together. There's kind of two big issues that I think pops up. One is if you write bad JavaScript in one place, it can impact other pages. And so you may get an error and it breaks a page and you may not realize it. And so that's probably the biggest issue. The other is like scope issues. So I guess there's three. The scope issues, we've seen some libraries have a hard time with the scoping because, for example, this swiper is within this if block. And so that is scoped differently than if it were global. It's pretty rare, but there have been a couple reports around. It might even be FinSuite that has a hard time with the reduced scope. And then the third issue, what was the third issue? I'm forgetting, but there's, oh yeah, it's the like, again, it's related to scope, but if you use a const or a let in the global space, it can run into each other. And so like you can define a const variable only once in your JavaScript. Otherwise it will break and it will throw an error. So this is an example of the updated script. So here you'll see we're using JavaScript imports and modules. So this particular file is a module, and we're importing it. And so that takes care of a lot of those issues that I just discussed. We also have this load page function. So if you are using an external script, then we're actually taking that script and just applying it to the page. So yeah, in the past, it was just part of this single file, like we saw here. But in this updated version, that file is just, we're going to get the script and we're going to insert it. Somewhat related to this, it's something I've looked at, is we do run into issues from time to time where a user will write an onload event, But the problem is that onload event has already run by the time their JavaScript runs. And so if that event doesn't fire, then some of their JavaScript may not run. So the feedback I'd give you is just realize that in our script, we are, let's see, we have this document add event listener when the DOM loads. And so you don't need to write a second load event because we're already waiting for the DOM to load before your JavaScript runs. So this update is turned on for beta users, so it's not available. I'm looking to make sure that there's no externalities that cause any issues. It's feeling pretty good on my side, but I would love anyone who wants to beta test this to give it a try. So at some point we'll promote this. The old way of doing things will still work, but the next time you save your file, you'll get that updated script.
Well, awesome. And so when you say beta users, is that like anyone that's currently using?
Yeah, that's
or
a
good because I
designation.
think we just need to clarify that just in case some people aren't seeing this.
That is different from people who have that little tag that says you're a beta user. It's a variable that I set in the database. So beta users are pretty much just at ground fault right now. But if you want me to toggle that in the database, let me know. So
in answer to Jeff's questions, just should I update the single script for my sites?
No, I wouldn't worry about it. If things are working as is, just keep moving forward. In the future, if you are making additional updates and you push this out as general, then it should just work. I haven't seen any reasons why it wouldn't work. In theory, like you could set a variable in one page and reference that variable in a different page. In that case, it might break something, but that's not how you should be writing your JavaScript. I don't think anyone's doing that already because, I don't think anyone would be doing that. It would be a problem within your code, like most likely. The other thing is, I haven't totally figured out. So Jeff used an import to do the Spline project, and that's part of the inspiration for using this import. But as far as like he was able to use kind of the old script in a different way to have an import that allowed him to use Spline, make Spline dynamic. So this is not totally analogous, but it is using that same JavaScript functionality that allowed him to make Spline dynamic. So I think we'll be able to add additional support. We try to keep JavaScript in easy mode. There is, like, if you're using these imports, in the future, I'm thinking I may expose this single script JavaScript to the user. And so you could choose to import just specific functionality. So if you just want to use a function, you can use an export on your JavaScript and then import just that function. So imports, they are pretty cool. It does allow you to kind of pull in specific functionality in kind of a granular way. In the future, we will probably allow you to kind of configure that. And in the case where Jeff was using a import for the Spline library, I could see us kind of enabling that in a more seamless way. But again, like that's not JavaScript in easy mode, so it's not necessarily our focus right away.
Okay, awesome. Does anyone have any other questions or things that they want to ask as we go through this? So that's all the current updates that we've got so far, Jared. Unless there's anything else that I've missed.
The one thing I'd add is do keep sending us feedback, and we're really prioritizing that. So we will log it on here. We'll be tracking it. We'll be letting you know when it's completed and when it's live, so that you can start using those updates. We certainly want to prioritize user feedback at this stage. So keep it coming.
Awesome. Is there anything that is on the roadmap that you particularly want to highlight that's to come, or that's
I mean, I think the easy answer is the community library. So we should have a version of community library out kind of this week. It's going to be pretty lightweight, and where that community library becomes valuable is once it's kind of populated with really interesting solutions. So I know that we've been talking with some members of the community who will be adding to it. We'll be adding our scripts. I think so we'll have a V1 that may not be that impressive, may be hard to find the script you're looking for. But as we get those scripts in place, we'll get better about how do we categorize them, how do we make them accessible, like is it search, is it something else? And we'll be rapidly iterating to make your JavaScript files, your solutions available to the community, and really highlighting the best ones. Related to that, we'll start doing more around like user profiles. So if you're really good at JavaScript and can help the Webflow community, we want to highlight that. What else would you say around this, Whit?
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that I'm excited to have in the library, just as far as like utilities. I always use the Webflow init function to wrap the Slater code that I'm writing in to make sure that everything's available. Things like being able to have stubbed out skeletons for swiper, splide, API calls, like fetch calls, any of that stuff. I don't know. It's hard for me to kind of pin down one thing because there's so many things that I think are going to be useful about this.
Yeah.
So I'm just generally excited. I guess that's like kind of a blanket statement.
Yeah. And we already had library support, so your own personal library. So you can add to this. You'll notice there's this checkbox right here. This code can be included in the community library. So what's going to happen is anytime you create your own library item, you'll be able to check this checkbox. If it's checked, it's going to go in a queue, and we're going to have curators who go through it and say, okay, this is good. This doesn't have a bunch of swear words in it. This is not malicious. And we'll let it into the community. And at that point, anybody's going to be able to pull it into their own personal library or copy it and use it however they need to. So if you have any library items, make sure it's checked. If you're interested and you want to be part of that team that curates the library, let us know. We'd be happy to get some external people helping us out with that.
Yeah, Jeff just posted in the chat, Rive snippets. Yeah, like Rive snippets, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of API things, like let's bring Rive in.
Yeah, we need a Jeff section.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like
filtered by
Jeff's picks. Yeah.
That sounds like a different website, Whit.
No, man, but I mean, that's like, you think about when we get down to, and like Jared was saying, we'll start out simple, but as we get into real like taxonomy and classification, to have like submitted by Jeff McAvoy, I mean, he's a fixture in the Webflow and the Rive communities. It's like, man, let's see what he's got. Let's see what Corey Moen's got. Let's see what Jack's got. Let's see what Jared's got. Like I think that there's a lot of opportunity to see Jeff's he's like, I already have a library ready to go. So beautiful.
And I actually think there's a lot of people in the community that have got like a Notion doc, or they've got like a place that is currently used used by them exclusively, and obviously, you know, there's people that might have their secret sauce that they don't want to share. But what we hope is that in the spirit of the Webflow community, where, you know, people are insanely generous, helping each other out, trying to help each other grow, as Mason always says, like a rising tide lifts all the boats, right? So if everyone can, you know, do more and more with custom code in their Webflow websites, then hopefully the Webflow ecosystem and the client base for Webflow is just generally going to grow. As clients realize, like, oh, you know, Webflow is like a really solid, you know, place to start building, and then you can integrate all sorts of different things using the power of custom code. And we want Slater to obviously be a part of that. So we hope for anyone that's watching is like, why would I share my code snippets? Come on, these are my code snippets. I've worked for you know, years building this up. Fair enough. I get that mindset, but just remember that, you know, the best chefs in the world, they share their recipes, right? That's why they've become notoriously good at what they do. And you know, there's a boomerang effect when you share and give generously. So
this is very in line with the open web. So open source is the reason we all can do what we're able to do on the web. It's extremely powerful to share solutions. So this will kind of be in addition to the Webflow community. But open source, like I'm sure all of us are using open source in our Webflow projects all the time. And yeah, so share, please share. I had another thought around this, but I didn't let it go. Oh yeah, we have a vague idea of pro Slater users in the sense that there are going to be the JavaScript professionals who can really support someone who's really great at design, but needs additional help to get their JavaScript or their Webflow functionality working how they want. So as you start adding to the library, it can be a way to show off your capabilities with JavaScript. And as we start building out user profiles, it will allow you to potentially become a professional, a JavaScript professional within the Webflow community. So, and again, it's a vague concept right now. If you have any thoughts around that, let us know. We'll be working towards that.
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight that there's, like, you know, the product aspect, and then there's the community aspect, and if those two can kind of go hand in hand, then I'm sure Slater will grow, and custom coders obviously in the space can grow with it.
Yeah, Slater will grow, but I think the Webflow community, the capabilities of that community can grow exponentially as some code is introduced through JavaScript.
I mean, who doesn't love some code, right? Like, yeah. I'm a real big fan of the whole idea of low code, but honestly, since I was telling somebody this morning, since working with Slater and GPT and all the different things that are kind of available now, I'm like looking for opportunities to augment with JavaScript and, you know, to generate like bananas CSS that I may not have the full scope of the syntax for up here. So,
yeah. A little bit further on roadmap, Whit kind of brought it up. So we're looking at views. So right now, Slater is kind of a development environment. It's very kind of in line with what you would expect if you were a developer. So it's taking a lot of ideas from VS Code and the development world. We will be thinking about, like, what's the no-code approach to this? So in theory, the AI is extremely powerful, and can we use prompting and connections to your Webflow project to write most of the code for you and be able to say, okay, there's an error. Let's use AI to solve that error. So what else would you say about kind of those? what's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing with views is that we're looking at abstraction. So it's like, currently we have our development view, we have our chat view. That's great. We always want to have those because they're necessary and super powerful. But there's things like abstracting variable declarations out into a view that's not necessarily, if you have a file or a generation that you've gotten from the chatbot, getting a list of what those variables that are declared in that script that was returned, presenting those in a way that you can assign values without reading through every line of code, stuff like that. Ability to add and navigate by documentation within code. But really, it's like everything we're thinking about in views is kind of an unpacking of what we currently have in a way to make it a little more visually friendly to somebody who's coming in that doesn't have a huge development background and is just kind of like looking for ways to try some stuff, and in a much less intimidating format, because looking at a wall of code I've been doing it for a while and I still look at some of it, I'm like, oh gosh, all right, what's happening where? So just continuing to try to make it easier for people to solve the problems that they're trying to solve using Slater.
Cool. The last thing I'd bring up is you are probably a beta user if you're on this call. So this will be sunsetting kind of at the end of the month. We'll have a blog post coming out about kind of what goes next. I think the big thing to highlight is if you have 12 different projects, you will still have access to those 12 different projects. You will be able to update those projects. So yeah, if you're a beta user, don't worry about losing anything. But in the future, as we turn on just V1, there's going to be some limitations around the number of projects, some limitations around the number of AI prompts. Actually, sorry, that's not true. We're not going to limit the number of projects. There's going to be some requirements around what you can push to a production domain. So we'll have a blog post on that, but we're super pleased with kind of everybody's help in beta as we've been getting this out there. And the big thing is, like, if you're a beta user, you'll have access to your projects forever. So no worries.
And Jared, there's 1,200 active users now, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Which is wild. So imagine
awesome.
The community power of that with code snippets, all the feedback that's happening. I'm actually going to get a Myra asking, doing some client interviews. So got a UX researcher on the EA team that is going to be getting in contact with probably you, Jeff, actually, and anyone else that's watching, because obviously, as a stalwart in the Slater community, we want to know what your thoughts are. I know we keep talking to you, Jeff. Hopefully you're cool with us reaching out to you as much as we are. Cool. Recap then. We've got so much stuff that we just covered. Transfers, big deal. Means that obviously you can transfer the cost of hosting the code to your clients, but you can also obviously access that code and keep doing stuff with them. We talked about some UI updates. We talked about caching. So there's now a way to get the most recent version of Slater if you're having problems with it. You don't necessarily need that, but just in case you're having problems with only being able to access the old version of Slater, you can now get the most recent version. And we also talked about future stuff, which is pretty exciting as well. Community library. Get your scripts together because you're about to populate this motherfucker. Then we've also got views and abstraction. We've also got variables stuff. I don't know if we actually talked about that today, but we've also talked a little bit about how the new stuff, the product updates that in Webflow and how that relates to Slater. And we're talking about improvements there. There's so much to be excited about. I'm buzzed. I think I need to upload the blog post as well, just in case anyone's like, where is this blog post explaining this stuff? Don't worry, that is on the way. And if you're just coming into the stream now and it's like, what's happening? I'm going to do a thread to go through a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. And you can obviously watch this live stream back as and when time allows. Anything that I've missed, guys, that needs to be highlighted that I didn't highlight?
I'm going to bring up one thing because people have thought it's gone away, but it hasn't. You can drag and drop your code onto the editor. The thing is, you can highlight what you want, and then you can drag it. And it's a little bit like it can be touchy. So you need to kind of be very intentional about doing that drag, but that does still work.
Cool.
It's even better than it was in the past because you can just take that little piece that you want as opposed to the entire thing.
Cool. We can probably work on some UI enhancements as I'm doing some of the other stuff to make that a little more visible. That is awesome though, because that was always one of my favorite things, and I personally actually did not know that was still available.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for letting us know.
Thanks for joining us, and let us know what you need.
Yes. Awesome. Tons to do. Blog posts coming out, community stuff to be organized. I need to get on that because as the community library comes out, what I'd love is that at the same time we've got this kind of Slater advocates and making sure that people get the rewards that they deserve for supporting us in the way that they are. So plenty to get done. Let's end the live stream because we got stuff to do. Loads of love, everyone. Great to go through all this, and yeah, keep giving us feedback if you're in the chat and it's like looking at UI things, thinking about community stuff. We do want to hear it, so please keep giving us the support we need to make a product that you guys actually want to use and is maximizing supercharging your websites with custom code. So yeah.
Cool.
Ciao, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.